Radio City Talk.
Liverpool Live with Mick Coyle. Weekdays 11 till 3.
Last week on the show, we were talking about the Comedy Trust, and Sam Avery was in the studio. We were talking about Feeling Funny comedy courses, which are back up and running for 2016. Courses in writing and performing your own comedy routine, aimed particularly at men, including those who have had mental health issues. And Sam was talking about some of the people who'd been involved on the course and the difference that the course had made to their lives. So I said, well, why don't we get them on the show and let's hear. Well, let's get Tony Howe on the show and Phil Seary. Gents, thanks for coming on the show.
Pleasure.
Great to see you.
Nice to see you.
You were both involved on the course. Tony, I'll start with you. When did you first hear about the course?
Well, I heard through the media, actually. It was actually through a website. But the PSS got involved as well. That's it's a mental health society. And it was just a course, a 6-week course that was available. I thought, let's have a go. Let's give it a bit of a stab, and I'm glad I did.
The first week that you went in, or the first 10 minutes, I don't know, that you were in the first day of the course, did you get a sense that it was going to be a positive thing?
Oh, yeah. Well, the hosts, Sam Avery and Helen, very welcoming, blah, blah, blah. And it was more or less an ice-breaking first introduction, which, you did a few, party games, perhaps. I remember one instance where we all had to mention a fruit. It'd be about, say, 12 of us, and we all had to think of a fruit. And, and the way you say whatever fruit you're talking about. For instance, a chap come out with kumquat. Now, kumquat, I think that just sounds funny, as opposed to apple, orange and banana, But kumquat seems to be the funniest one to come out.
And as soon as you heard that, you knew you were in like-minded people. Yeah. And Phil, you were on the course as well. Similar path to get in there?
Yeah, it was. I'd thought about applying the year before when I'd seen it in the media as well, but bottled it. And then, as Tony said, Sam Avery and Helen Holden came into the PSS Centre to sign people up, and we thought, well, let's go.
There's something about stand-up comedy, which, I've never ever done it. This idea that you stand in front of an audience. I do, obviously, the radio show in front of an audience every single day, but this idea of that you're going to stand there and essentially they're going to in some way go, well, come on then, make us laugh.
Yeah.
It's an intimidating thing, isn't it?
It is an intimidating thing. Up until the start of the course, I wouldn't have done it with a gun to my head, to be perfectly honest. But as Tony said, the course is really well run. Sam's very good with people. Helen Holden, the project manager, all got involved and eased us slowly into it. And we did our course in the Radio City Tower, the only building with a fire escape as a lift.
Yeah, there are some stairs, don't worry. There are some stairs. What was it like as the course developed? Did you feel differently about yourself? Did you feel like it was a personal challenge that you were embarking on, or did you feel that it was a group thing, that actually you were all in this?
It was a personal thing to start with, and as the weeks wore on, the camaraderie in the group was really good. We felt like we'd known each other for years after about the 4th week, as we developed our routines, and everyone was very supportive. Some weeks you wouldn't feel like getting up, or you'd be anxious, and someone would always say, "Come on, get up. No one's going to laugh at you."
Oh, he's still got the lines. Well, I'm actually going to ask you about whether or not you're still doing bits and bobs about in comedy a little bit later on. Tony, just tell me about. People talk about the fact that aimed particularly at those who've had mental health issues. What range of people did you see on the course? What sort of issues were prominent? It's not always dead obvious. If it was people who'd lost legs or lost limbs, you could see straight away. You can't when it's mental health issues.
Yeah, you get people with social phobias, a bit like myself, paranoia, and just people who find it difficult to communicate, on a daily basis. So you get people who are quite isolated, and this course, the way it's run, when you itemise it right down, Sam's got it spot on. And it's a gradual process. Everyone's different, so I appreciate that. But some come on quicker than others, to get confidence building. And to a different range, from A to Z of people, and whatever they may be suffering within the mental health challenge.
I was going to say, because everybody, I guess, has individual needs and everybody has individual issues, but to find a process, a course in just 6 weeks is a short amount of time, isn't it, for a few hours at a time, to actually find something which benefits everybody is quite special. Is it to do with the confidence, or is it to do with like the sort of the fact that trying to make somebody laugh or having a laugh is a universal thing?
Well, trying to make people laugh obviously is a challenge. Some people are just natural, but I'm quite sure there's a core within the brain somewhere, a core within the body, which just needs unlocking, and that course can unlock that little nugget of happiness.
I asked Sam, and he gave me his response, but I wanted to ask you guys this. How much of it was, for your point of view, the fact that actually this was something where on a whatever night, Tuesday night or whatever it was, you went somewhere, you were in a social environment, you had a good laugh, you had a focus, you had a point in mind that you were aiming towards something, you had a sort of reason to be involved in the course. How much of a benefit was that compared to what you would have been doing alternatively?
Yeah, having that goal, that 6-week goal, I mean, you didn't have to achieve that. If you didn't feel confident enough to do it, you didn't have to do it. But the actual process of like going from 0 to 10 within 6 weeks, it's a very good challenge, and it gives you a good focus, and that I think is essential if you're mentally challenged in that way. And it's all good.
Just Phil, tell us about yourself, your own attitude in that regard, as to how you built up to coming on it, and the benefits of actually just being involved in something like this.
It was, as Tony said, it was just getting together once a week, having a good laugh, exploring something new. We were taught microphone techniques and the other technicalities of it, but it was just offloading, and it is very beneficial. They say laughter's the best medicine. It is a cliche, but as with most cliches, it's true. And the course was very beneficial, and as Tony said, you don't have to go on at the end. In the end, we did a gig at Baby Blue on the dock, and as Sam said, it's just in front of friends and family. But I didn't know anyone else's friends and family, only mine. So it is like doing a proper gig, and it was nerve-wracking, but very fulfilling, satisfying.
Well, Sam was keen to point out it wasn't hens and stag do's.
No.
A baying audience.
No.
But there are, apart from your friends and family, everyone else is a stranger.
Yeah. Oh, we had a few hecklers, but Sam dealt with them initially.
Was it Tony?
Yeah, it was Tony. Yeah. But having done the course, and I've done a couple of gigs since, and Tony has as well. The fear of people's biggest fear are dying on the proverbial. But the clue's in the name, stand up, so you shouldn't do that. I'm being heckled, but I wouldn't exactly welcome heckle, but I'm able to deal with it, So
excellent. I'm going to talk about in the next few minutes about how you went from being normal blokes to being stand-up comedians, and how you actually go on that process, and how you start writing down funny things, telling jokes, knowing how to deliver a joke, wait for the laughs, and all the sort of etiquette that comes with that. And then we'll find out about the work you've been doing since you left the course as well, and what the benefits of the course have been. We'll talk some more. We've got Tony and Phil with us. We're talking about the Feeling Funny comedy course by the Comedy Trust. They're taking on for the next round of these, and there's only 15 places available. But the livewellliverpool.info website has got the information, and thecomedytrust.com website has got all the information too. But if you contact the show, I'll send you the info. More from Tony and Phil in a couple of moments.
You're listening to Liverpool Live with Mick Coyle.
Radio City Talk.
21 minutes past 12, it's Radio City Talk. My name is Mick Coyle. We're speaking with Tony Howe and Phil Seary, both who have been on the Feeling Funny comedy course organised by Sam Avery through the Comedy Trust, and it's about people standing up and doing comedy. Stand-up comedy. There you go, we can call it that. That'll catch on.
Yeah.
Tony and Phil have been explaining about how they got involved on the course themselves and the benefits that they've had. The point at which I wanted to ask you about this one, Phil, I'll start with you. The point at which you start writing jokes, it's difficult, that, isn't it? To start thinking, right, I now need to say something in front of a room of people which will make them laugh. So you go with, chicken crossing the road, knock knocks and all that, but you think that doesn't work. That's not how stand-up comedy works.
It isn't. The difficulty I find is not writing stuff down. I've always thought up jokes and funny things in my head since I can remember, never written them down. I write a lot of poetry as well, which is mainly comedic. So I was used to that, but the stand-up is a whole different ball game because you can stand there with your poem, and you know it's funny because with comedy, it's totally different. But it's just about turning something on its head, or pulling the rug when people are expecting you to go down one route, or plays on words and that type of thing.
So, was it about? Did Sam say to you, right? This is going to be something that you know about, something that you relate to. Draw on your own inspiration. Was there anything which stood out to you as being something which you could instantly talk about? Be it, mental health issues as well. Was there anything in there that you thought, right? This is the thing that I know I can talk about.
Yeah, I think with any art form, you've got to know what you're talking about, or write about what you're talking about, and be passionate about it as well. It sounds contrived if you're writing something that you've no experience of, or you're not really interested in. So we started with mental health issues, but the course doesn't need to be, your routine doesn't need to be about solely about that. It's just a chance to talk, because men don't talk about the health in general, let alone mental health, which is still taboo. And a part of our goal, if you like, is to destigmatise that through the poetry that we do, and hopefully comedy in the future. I mean, I suffered post-traumatic stress disorder, but I've had my mail redirected now, so I'm fine. Let someone else have the stress and trauma of all those little brown envelopes.
Was that your opening?
So
was that the opener?
Yeah, that was one of the openers.
That's a good one. Yeah?
That's probably one of the few that we can we can go on there.
Tony, what did you draw inspiration when you thought, right, how am I going to stand up and make people laugh?
Again, you got to talk about or explain, exactly what you're familiar with, and mental health. I am familiar with, so you can discuss your own phobias. What might scare you or frighten you. For instance, like public transport can be quite a difficult one for people, in crowds, which is like a social phobia. So, taking that the first gig that we did was down the Albert Dock, it's like the old adage, a funny thing happened to me on the way to the Albert Dock. I didn't come by the normal route, I arrived by submarine, which is, the most, I would suggest, antisocial way to travel to get from A to B. And, that's it. And you just go from there, and you can get a bit of politics into it as well, food banks, etc., and normal banks, so whatever's in the media around the mental health, even benefit cuts and all that, you can make light of it, but in a serious, but light but serious way, if you know what I mean. So not to trivialise it by any means, but discuss it in a comedic way, I think that's a good communicative.
I think if people one of the good things, you can talk about any subject, no matter how black or serious, and the British are renowned for the black humour, and it does make it easier. And you can get a message across through being funny. I know one of the previous course attendees had children who were self-harming, and her opening line was, we've started a self-help group for people who self-harm, but because of all the cuts, we had to close it.
Which is a clever line.
It is a clever line, and because that person experienced that, they can say it's not insulting anyone, but it brings it to the fore, if you like.
I think there's something to be said for... if you can't laugh at something, you've essentially put it on a pedestal. There was a story on social media the day that the Siddiqui brothers from Gogglebox had gone paintballing. They were all dressed up in camouflage gear, and they put on their social media ISIS training camp day one, which was like it was lampooning.
It's a joke.
This idea of but they were going, oh, you're not allowed to make jokes about ISIS. And I think, well, the point at which you're not allowed to make jokes about things means that they're too sacred, they're too special. And actually, the point, if you can laugh at anything and everything in a particular way, and not it's an offensive way, then it brings everything down to a level which is actually more understandable to people. That they're not, these bogeymen who live out in X, Y, and Z.
No,
they're people
not.
who can be laughed at because they're cowards and they're. But that's a slightly different point than I was going off on a tangent on. But Tony, who do you look up to comedically? Is there anyone in particular where you thought, well, if I could get an element of that without wanting to copy their style?
Well, when I first started the course, a preamble to the course was do a little bit of research on some comedians, And the one that stuck out for me was Alexei Sale, one of our homegrown chappies, And he's so funny. you know. But he does what's the name of the guy?
Bobby Chariot.
He's got an alter ego called Bobby Chariot, and he's so unfunny. It's funny. That's the way he works. And if you go on that basis, you know, he can be unfunny, but funny at the same time. And that's one chap. And of course, Ken Dodd, you know, marvellous chap, isn't he? Fantastic. But for me, Alexei Sale, you know.
Took inspiration from Ken Dodd and did an 8-hour set.
Yeah.
Phil, who was it for you?
Alexei Sale, I have to agree with Tony. We're quite similar in our comedy, actually. Tony's a bit more surreal than I am. Alexei Sale and the Bobby Chariot character, he's on YouTube. It's absolutely hilarious. I also like a lot of sitcoms from the past. I liked Rising Damp and the comedy writing in that, Fawlty Towers. So I'm not really a particular stand-up comedian. I'd say probably Ken Dodd again, and Mick Miller is another one. He's still doing I think he does the cruise ships and that now. Very, very funny man.
When you stand up and you start telling the jokes and it's getting a reaction, hopefully that reaction is a positive one, Tony. How does that feel? What are those moments like when you're up on the stage? Bearing in mind where you've come from before you step through the door on the first course. What's it like while it's happening? Or are you too focused on actually nailing your set?
Yeah, it's quite difficult to explain really, because you get a titter, a bit of a laugh, a bit of a giggle, and then your adrenaline starts to rush in. And like, you know, if you're doing like a 3 or 4 minute set, 5 minute set, that only feels like a minute. So sometimes you can forget where you're up to. But the appreciation of anyone who giggles is great, you know what I mean? But every giggle's a bonus, isn't it? But adrenaline, and when it's done and over, clap, 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 hopefully, you're off and you think, what happened there then? I can't remember anything.
Phil, what was that? What was it like? Was it when you're up on the stage and it's going okay, and people are laughing and people do seem to understand the comedy you're trying to put across?
The first couple, I was on last, so I had more time for the nerves. But like Tony said, it seemed to go by in a minute, and I think I did about 7 or 8 minutes, perhaps more. In fact, the first course, the course we did, a couple of women we knew filmed it, and it's actually on YouTube. It's under the comedians Pete Ryan. I think it's 1 hour and 39 minutes. So if anyone wants to see us in action and the rest of the guys who did it, that's the place to go. Gives you a buzz, and then up until you go on, you're thinking, what am I doing this for? But it's beneficial to your well-being, your confidence, self-esteem, all the rest of it. And even if I see a comedian now, and I've been around a few places looking at comedians, and even if they're not funny, I won't deride them, because it does take an awful lot to get up there.
Because you know that there's a craft that's got into it, and they've not, they've maybe not hit the points, or they've not nailed it, or they've not got the right room in front of them, but they've still put in, a shift to get that set going.
They have done.
So you do the course, and you have the night, and it's completed, and there's a round of applause, and it's over before you know it. Tony, what are your thoughts at that point? Do you think, right, back to reality now, back to normal life, back to the way things were? Or how do you think, right, I've got something there, I've done something, I can take that with me?
It comes out, well, when's the next one? That's it. It becomes an addiction in a nice way. And it keeps your thoughts going. Like Phil said before, it's essential. If you have a little bit of an idea, write it down, keep it. You can always go back to it, work on it, because everything in life, I think, there's a funny side to everything, however dark it might be or may be, So, look forward to the next one, and keep on taking notes. Write things down. It is essential.
So did you go and think, right, I'll go and approach open mic nights, I'll try and approach comedy clubs, I'll try and do something, I'll try and make a career out of it, Phil, I don't know.
That's a thought. The whole reason I did the course in the first place, I do a lot of poetry, as I mentioned earlier, and rather than getting up and reading 5 poems, said this poem's called such and such, this poem's called such and such, was trying to link it with comedy. So I'm working on that at the moment. Sam and Helen have actually started a comedy club where all the people who've been on the course meet once a month. And the idea being, on the 4th month, we'll do a gig. So that's what we're aiming for at the moment. But we do open mic poetry in other places and try and inject a bit of comedy. And
we'll say it again, you guys, although you were fans of comedy, you weren't stand-up comedians by any stretch. And people will be listening to this now thinking, maybe it's something I like the sound of. What would be your encouragement, Tony, for people who are thinking maybe possibly of signing up to this course?
Give it a go. There's no negatives at all. None whatsoever. Sam and Helen will guide you right through all the little tricks of the trade. They'll take the nerves away from you. Brilliant.
Most of them.
Go for it.
Yeah, except if you're on last.
Yeah. Well, no, it was all right, actually. It was all right because you have the last laugh, as they say. So that was quite fulfilling.
Excellent stuff. And in terms of how things have benefited in your life, Phil, just where were you at the moment? You mentioned your PTSD.
Far more confident. As we alluded to before, it's a social event as well as a personal thing, and you do build a bond with the people on the course. We've been to, I think, every course after ours to give some support and bulk the audience up and see what's coming through. Some cracking, funny people.
And Tony, what have been the sort of medium to long term benefits for you, the person you are now compared to the person you are before the course started?
Well, to be honest with you, I wouldn't be sitting here today. I mean, I haven't got the face for. I have got the face for radio.
Yeah.
But yeah, even sitting here now talking to you, and obviously a very large audience with Radio City. Yeah, I wouldn't be sitting here today. Confident.
I feel the same. And I'm sure both your listeners will agree. That's an old one.
There we go. You can tell comedians, they've been turned into comedians officially. So the Comedy Trust has got the website, and Phil, you're going to do the honours now because you're going to give everyone the information that they need.
I am, yeah. It's the Feeling Funny comedy course. The next course starts the 10th of August, which is next Wednesday. It's 5:45 till 7:45. It's in Bootle. I'm not sure of the venue, but you can contact Helen Holden on 0151 709 5893, or you can email helen@thecomedytrust.com. And I'd urge everyone who's even thinking about it or has perhaps dreamt in the past, go and do it.
Can I just add to that? You don't need a passport to enter Bootle.
No.
Yeah, although venue to be confirmed, it's in Bootle, so
it's in Bootle. But if you get in touch with Helen, she'll give you all the details.
Brilliant stuff.
I'll leave those with you.
Phil, thank you for your time. When are you next on a stage? Do you have a next event that you're up?
Yeah, we do a night called the Nearly Dead Poets Society, which is the first Monday of every month at the Atrium on Victoria Street. New readers are always welcome. We do a bit of comedy as well. I'm starting to get a cauliflower bum, to be honest with you. We've got music as well, so first Monday of every month, 7:30.
And Tony, what are you next on stage?
Yeah, same as Phil, the Atrium on Victoria Street.
Radio City Talk.
Liverpool Live with Mick Coyle. Back tomorrow from 11.